the transition and the movements, that required a lot more than we thought. Now, one of the biggest problems we had was the sand. Tanks were being in-op for VPACs, air filters or whatever you want to call it that, because of the sand. The equipment, you had to clean it on a regular basis because of the sand. We weren't ready for, if you want to say, deployment and tracking items that were deployed. For example, we had tons of equipment over there, but we didn't know where it was in connexes. And so you had maintenance folks, warrant officers back there, connex hopping, looking for spare parts because they were not labeled and not marked. And then you had these big trade wars because you knew people needed certain things, and the guys would go back to these connexes and find all this stuff, and then this guy knew that this guy had it, so they traded or whatever it was. Food. We ate chicken cacciatore for 2 weeks. Tea-ration chicken cacciatore, because we didn't know where the rest of the food was. People were so much in need of something else to eat other than chicken cacciatore or something else. They brought in fresh vegetables, but then they washed it with the water from there, and everybody got sick. I mean, we had people, we were inoperable as a division because everybody was sick when we first got there because of the water that was being consumed. Now, we cleared up in a couple of weeks and we were okay. And then when you're talking about moving long distances, we didn't have enough fuelers to go the distances, but they eventually brought them in. We had to switch out tanks. We went from the 105 millimeter M1 tank to the 120. That happened just before crossing, well, before the war started, before the fighting started. Our ADA unit never fired. We were overprepared there. We were ready to shoot down Iraqi aircraft with the air defense artillery unit that we had. But we didn't do it. They ended up being road guards and road cops to move people around these long distances. There was a lot of make it up as you go in some cases, particularly on the supply side of the house. We were not as prepared as we should have been. We were expecting chemicals and everything else. People were taking these chemical pills, these nerve agent pills or whatever. And some people, I think, probably are still having issues with that today. But Joe McCaffrey decided, hey, we're not going to take that stuff until we've been hit. We fought the whole war in mop suits, green mop suits, the whole war. From the time we deployed or just before deploying, we were in mop suits, expecting chemical attacks. And can you imagine being in the desert? Granted, it was February, but can you imagine being in a mop suit the whole time? And the other thing was the 45. Some people had 9 millimeters. We had 45s. That fine dust would get on the 45 rounds, and it wouldn't chamber. So you had to clean each bullet and put a coat of oil on it for it to chamber and go into the 45. And you had to do that on a regular basis. So if you had 4 or 5 magazines, you had to take each bullet out, put a little light coat of oil on it, wipe it down, each one, and put it back in there. Or else you try to shoot the 45 and it would jam. So not a problem with the M16 or the 25 millimeter or the 7.62, but the 45 was a problem. And we didn't get 9 millimeters till after the war was over. But hey, you do what you got to do.